A lot of the Californians who moved to Cedar City, they moved here to get away from the radical policies of California, the high taxes, the regulation. But a lot of Californians who moved out here, they love California, and they probably would have stayed if they could afford to do that. And I love rural Utah. I moved out here for the access to public lands, the natural forests, Zion. But unless we start electing representatives who actually center the problems of working people here in this district, then in 10 years, there's going to be a bunch of Cedar City people who moved out to Paragona or Beaver or Vernal because they couldn't afford to live here. I think that there's this default assumption that the Republicans out here in the legislature and on the Iron County Commission and on the city council are running Cedar City and District 71 in a way that most of the people in the community agree with. At the same time, people have been complaining about the explosive growth, the construction that never seems to end, the traffic, the lack of really good jobs that actually pay fair wages. This person is a Trump supporter, so therefore they got my best interest in mind. When I'm telling you, it's not that. And now the whole community is rising up in essentially unanimous agreement against this gigantic data center, but we're powerless to stop it because they don't listen to us. I hate taxes as much as the next guy. I think taxes should be lower for working people, and I can understand voting for a Republican because they're going to lower taxes for small businesses. But nobody ever runs on those platforms. I mean, of course they run on those platforms, but it's always a Trojan horse to get all this other policy in. Massive corporate deregulation, AI data centers, dismantling the Clean Air Act, dismantling the Clean Water Act, defunding public education, selling off public lands, attacking unions, raising the cost of living, raising the cost of housing, draining the Great Salt Lake. And it's this two-party system that forces every issue onto an either or, while both mainstream parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, ultimately exist to serve their corporate overlords, to see who can give away more to people that already have everything. And regular people, we're struggling. 70% of Americans now live paycheck to paycheck. The 1% owns as much wealth as the bottom 99% combined. And I just want to know, when does it end? When will enough be enough? When will our representatives actually say, we want to give regular people a fair shot? We want working families to be able to afford homes out here. We want people to be able to afford their health care if they get sick so that they don't go bankrupt. And we don't think that corporations should have the right to spend unlimited billions and billions of dollars influencing our elections, consolidating ownership over 99% of all of our media platforms, stealing our data and then algorithmically dividing us so that we see our neighbors and people who think differently as the enemy more than we see our own government that is selling us out and making life worse and worse every single year as the real enemy. I'm running as a Democrat because rural Utah deserves a real opposition party. We deserve real representation, and the Democratic Party has essentially given up on rural America. And it's not because people out here don't like policy that makes their lives better, but it's because these liberal elites that are living in the city, they come out to the country and they treat Christian, gun-toting, anti-big government conservatives like they're smarter than them or better than them. And they try to import the politics from New York or San Francisco into rural Utah and expect that to go well. And tell people that they're bigots if they don't agree with that. How are you going to tell someone who scrimped and saved and sacrificed for everything that they have and they're barely keeping their head above water that they have privilege and that somebody else deserves what they have more because of the color of their skin or their gender? Listen, I'm an unapologetic progressive, but being a progressive means making progress. The reason that Bernie Sanders was so popular with independents and even conservatives was because he spoke to people's real economic issues instead of focusing on these hollow identity politics. And the reason that Trump was so popular was because people felt like he was listening to them, like he understood and he cared about what they cared about. If we love Utah and we actually want to preserve the things about our state that make it so special, then we have to be willing to work with the Republicans and the Democrats and the Libertarians and the unaffiliated and the independents in our community who care about those same things. Because left or right, we really do want a lot of the same things. We want to work hard and build a good life and raise a family. We want the American dream, but that is being taken from us. And it's not immigrants or gay people. It is a government that has been infiltrated by corporate puppets and politicians who only exist to serve their corporate overlords, who have forgotten what the point of government is. Government is a tool for working people to make their lives better, to make their country better. And instead it has become a tool to oppress us. The majority of Republicans do agree that climate change is caused by human emissions. Yet there is not a single Republican politician serving in office today that is willing to say that same thing. And there are many who are willing to attack solar and wind, even though it is a cheaper source of electricity. And they expect us to honestly believe their bullshit reasons instead of realizing that they are bought by big oil. And when they tell us they can't bring down healthcare costs, they can't lower the cost of your insulin or your medication, they expect us to honestly buy their bullshit answer instead of realizing that they're bought by the pharmaceutical industry. And the same thing when they tax a nurse or a teacher or a fireman more than they tax a billionaire. Don't be a sheep that they just continue to bleed dry. Be a real American like your ancestors and fight back against un-American, authoritarian, corporate oligarchs and globalists that have infiltrated and subverted your democracy. Revolution and freedom are in our blood as Americans. And that goes just as much for your Democrat neighbor as it does for you. Freedom isn't free. It's something that has to be constantly defended. And the truth is, for the last 50 years, we haven't been doing a good enough job. The whole country is being gerrymandered in the name of preserving balance. The truth is that anything that erodes the two-party system and takes power away from the Republicans and the Democrats strengthens democracy. It makes your voice stronger. So Utahns in Salt Lake City got their first representation in Congress ever, but rural Utah doesn't have representation. If we did, then our leaders would actually listen to our problems and try to solve them instead of making them worse. The rapid build out of this AI data center infrastructure has the potential to be an incredible opportunity for rural America. We could use it to build clean energy, eliminate property taxes, fund schools. But of course, I think most of us are so against it because we know that's not how it's going to be. It's going to be another industry like the oil or the mining industry that once again brings all of its harms and all of its problems to our communities while exporting all of the wealth and all of the benefits somewhere else. Rural Utahns deserve a new kind of politics, a politics that is pro-worker and progressive. A politics that actually has a vision for the future that is not just everything getting more expensive and shittier. I love Utah, and if you cared about it the way that I do, then you would send a message to the Republicans that don't even pretend to represent you. My name is Thomas Loveheart, and I'm a progressive independent for rural Utah. You can learn all about me and where I stand on my website, voteloveheart.com. And I know money is tight for all of us, but please consider donating to my campaign because this is as grassroots as it gets. And if we want to have a real stake in the future of our community, then we need to work together to elect someone who's going to make that happen.